At this station, we will talk about the ear. As we all know, the ear has two functions. The first one is hearing, and the second one is keeping our balance. Now, the ear is consist of three parts: the outer ear, middle ear, and the inner ear. The outer ear is from the auricle till the auditory membrane or the tympanic membrane. The inner ear is from the inner side of tympanic membrane to the outer side of the inner ear here, and the rest is the inner ear. Starting from the outer ear, here we found the auricle. The auricle consists of the hallux, which is the outer curvature, and the antihallux, which is the second parallel inner curvature, and the tragus, which is found here, and the antitragus here. The inner depression here is called the concha. The auricle consists of cartilage and covered by skin. Actually, the auricle is movable by the muscles of facial expression, which is attached to it from the outer side. From the auricle, now we have the external auditory meatus, which transmits the sound from the auricle toward the middle ear. The external auditory meatus consists from cartilage in its outer 1/3 and bone structure in its inner 2/3. It's covered by skin, which contain hair, sebaceous cyst, and ceruminous gland, which is responsible for secretion of the wax. Now we have the tympanic membrane, which is the inner boundary of the outer ear. The tympanic membrane is a 1 centimeter fibrous membrane. The tympanic membrane is a 1 centimeter oval rounded membrane. Its fibrous structure. It's attached on its outer surface by a sulcus into the bone. In its superior surface, it's lost its attachment to the bone because there is no sulcus. Here, it have anterior and posterior malleolar folds. The anterior and posterior malleolar folds will attach posteriorly at the middle ear to the handle of the malleus bone, which is here. Okay, this depression at the tympanic membrane is called the umbel, which is the end of the handle of the malleus bone posteriorly. Now, this area of the anterior and posterior malleolar folds is called pars flaccida. The rest of the circle of the tympanic membrane is called pars tensa. Now we are finished the outer ear. Let's come to the middle ear. The middle ear is an aerated. The middle ear is an aerated cavity which is communicated to the nasopharynx by the auditory tube, which is called the Eustachian tube. Okay, this cavity contains 3 small bones which is articulated together, and they are called the ossicles. This is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third ossicle. This is the first one, and this is the second one, and this is the third ossicle. This is the first ossicle, which is called malleus. This is the second one, which is called incus, and this is the third one, which is called stapes. Now, the malleus bone has head, which is rounded structure, and it is articulated with the incus, and constricted structure, which is called the neck, and long handle, which is attached to the tympanic membrane, and anterior and lateral processes. The lateral process is attached to the anterior and posterior malleolar fold, which is I have mentioned it in the external ear, and the anterior one is attached to the tympanic membrane itself by a fibrous ligament. The malleus is articulated with the second bone, which is the incus. The incus has two processes, long process and short process. The long process is articulated with the third bone, which is called the stapes. The stapes bone has head and constricted neck and two limbs and a base. And the base is connected to the inner ear. In the middle ear, we have two muscles. The first one is the tensor tympani muscle, which is originate on its groove and pass to be inserted in the handle of the malleus bone. This is supplied by the mandibular nerve. The second muscle is called stapedius muscle. From its name, we will know that it will be inserted in the stapes bone. This muscle originated from the posterior wall of the middle ear cavity and inserted to the stapes bone. This muscle is supplied by the facial nerve. Regarding the Eustachian tube, the upper opening is opened at the middle cavity, and the second opening is opened at the nasopharynx. Its cavity is guarded by 2/3 of cartilaginous tissue and 1/3 of the bone. Now we have finished the middle ear. Let's talk about the inner ear. The inner ear is consisted from three structures. Semicircular canals, which are three. Those are the semicircular canals, the cochlea, and the vestibule. The outer round of the cochlea contains the promontory, which is formed the medial wall of the middle ear. And we have here the fascicula vestibuli, which is formed the articulation with the stapes bone. Now, the semicircular canals are filled of fluid, which is called perilymph, and another one which is found inside the membranous part of it and called endolymph. I forgot to mention that those semicircular canals have bony outer surface and they have inner membranous surface. Now, projecting or entering those structure is the vestibulocochlear nerve, which is the 8th cranial nerve. When it enters the ear through the internal auditory meatus, it is divided into vestibular part and cochlear part. The vestibular part enters the vestibule and is specialized for hearing, and the cochlear part enters the cochlea and is responsible for our balance. Here we have the internal auditory meatus, where is the entrance of the vestibulocochlear nerve. The vestibulocochlear nerve, when it enters the ear, it is divided into two branches, vestibular branch and cochlear branch. The cochlear branch is responsible for our balance. Here we have the internal auditory meatus, which is the opening for the entrance of the vestibulocochlear nerve. The vestibulocochlear nerve, in fact, have two divisions, the vestibular branch and the cochlear branch. The cochlear branch is responsible for our hearing, and the vestibular branch is responsible for our balance. By talking about the inner ear, we are finished our talk about the ear. Now let's recap what we have seen. We said that the ear consists of three parts: outer, inner, and outer, middle, and inner part. And we have mentioned all the structure of the three parts.